Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 18 Glitch in the Matrix, Paranormal, and a couple creepy stories for you. Whole gamut as always, let's get to it. Whoa, Dave. Case file number 3116, written by Vethrax. As tall as a light. This was a few years ago, around midnight. Me and my brother were taking a walk back home from just hanging around and talking in the playground. We heard weird branches snapping and leaves brushing like a few meters behind us. We looked back, and at first we saw nothing, but when we focused on the lamppost in the far back, we saw some kind of tall figure, as tall as a lamppost. It was gargantuan and extremely sticky thin. I wouldn't exactly say Slender Man kind of thing, but once that thing noticed us, it started reaching out. I couldn't remember if it was a hand, hook, or blunt forearm, but it was definitely reaching out. Me and my brother ran instantly, but the nerve-crushing part was, it made bird noises while it was chasing us. It didn't make any footstep sounds either, it just chased us down. After about 15 seconds of being chased, we turned around and it was dead silent. It wasn't after us anymore. The noise of birds it was mimicking suddenly stopped. Me and my brother decided to keep this between us, as we didn't think even our own parents would believe us. But those bird noises it made years ago still are haunting to hear. To this day, we would turn around if we ever heard those specific bird noises again to see if it was the same thing that was stalking us years ago. You could say we have a trauma response to chirps now. I can certainly appreciate the, let's say, trauma of the bird chirps. I often record when I wake up, and often that is, in the early hours, later at night. I mean, when I wake up always changes because I have delayed onset sleep disorder. Just means my circadian rhythm operates on closer to 25 hours a day instead of 24. Anyways, bird chirps terrify me because if I try to record, I can't record when they're chirping because that gets into the recording. You can't really remove those easily. Not over the vocals, and it's just annoying. So yeah, not the same kind of fear, but relatable. Case file number 3117, written by Bird Name Ronson. Beneath the Porch Light. I was at a bar with some friends. We were sitting at a large table, and there were no other free seats, so a couple of guys walked up to us to ask if they could sit down. Then I recognized one of the guys, as did he, so he said, "Hi, my name," and I said, "Hi, his name." They sat down, and we did the normal, "How are things" routine. But after a while, I came to realize I had no idea how I knew him. I 100% knew his name, without a doubt, when I saw him first, and he was familiar. So I had to ask him, where did we know each other from? He did not know either. He just had the same feeling when he saw me. Someone he knew and instantly remembered my name. We spent the next hours backtracking lives and checking if we had Facebook friends in common. We did not know the same people, not even the same type of people. We did not frequent any of the same places. In fact, this was his first time at this bar. He was not even from the city, just visiting. In the end, we just parted ways, agreeing that this was one of the strangest things we had ever experienced. I've not met him since. This happened 5 or 6 years ago. The first couple of months after, I would show him on Facebook to my friends and ask if they knew him, and yet no one did. I think our paths must have just crossed in a parallel universe. And another one. I grew up in a small town, 10 houses, a few miles outside of a larger town where I went to school. My best friend lived 2 houses down from me. One night, we were visiting a friend in said larger town to watch a couple of movies and just hang out. We were 16 years old and completely sober. At about midnight, it was time to go home, and we just did what we normally did, we walked. Being in the middle of nowhere, it was pitch black, nothing but the stars in the sky. But it didn't startle us at all, as we normally walked a lot when visiting friends. We just loved talking Counter-Strike, movies, and smoking cigarettes and whatnot. On this walk home, walking the main road as always, we noticed someone walking ahead of us, like maybe a half mile ahead. Being the dumb teens as we were, We picked up our pace slightly and started yelling, "Hey!" at the person ahead of us as we got closer, but we did not get any response. A car went by in the opposite direction, and in the headlights, we got clear confirmation that someone was walking in front of us. When we were about a half mile from our tiny town, we got to a small hill just outside of the town sign with a solitary house on top. The guy that lives there is a loner hermit, former priest that nobody really interacts with, but is friendly enough. We were only a couple yards away from the figure ahead of us when another car went past, once again illuminating the person in front of us. This time, we were close enough to get a more detailed view. What we saw was a silhouette that was clearly oversized and very, very hairy. As soon as the car went past, it turned and walked up the driveway. As we went by the house, we looked towards the porch where a single light shines, and below it, a figure and face looked straight at us. Looked like a mixture of a man and beast. My friend and I stopped, glanced at each other, and without a word, started sprinting home. When we reached my friend's house first, he went straight inside, and I continued to my house, jumped inside, locked all the doors and windows, and just stared out the front door for 5 minutes until I was interrupted by my mother, who was having an excellent time with a bottle of wine and the music of her youth. I didn't share anything about what had happened with her. I went straight to bed, distracting myself with some TV, I think. No longer remember. My friend and I have never once discussed what happened that night, and I honestly forgot all about it for a couple of years, until one night a friend asked if we believed in the paranormal and I said no. Then I remembered this experience. So that first story is so interesting because I think a lot of people get that sense where they know someone, but they're not sure from where. It's like a past life connection, but this is even deeper because you both knew each other's names. In this universe, in this reality, in this timeline. Does anyone else think that there are people that we are specifically attuned to? It's almost like quantum entanglement with particles, but on a much larger scale. For some reason, we're bound to certain people. Not necessarily romantically, it could be a friendship, a deeper bond. Maybe it does have to do with past lives, past game saves, you could say. But I am biased because I really like that idea and hope it's true. Case file number 3118, written by Avarat V6. A shadow I knew. When I was younger, I lived in a pretty small town. I was about 7 or 8 and my grandparents drove me to their friend's house on the other side of the cornfield they both lived on. It was about 10 or 11 at night. They didn't tell me why, just that they had some things they needed to do with my parents. I laid down on the spare bed in their son's room and went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night to a quiet squeak. I looked over and their son was asleep in his bed and no lights or anything else were on in the house. There was a dark, shadowy figure of a man standing in the doorway, between 5 and 6 feet. My grandparents' friend was rather short and slim. Her husband worked third shift and was at work. This figure stayed at the door for quite a while. There was no fear on my end, and I didn't feel threatened. He seemed peaceful. I went home and things felt normal for a bit the next morning, but then I found out my great-grandfather had passed away. I don't believe in ghosts. I've never had an experience like that other than this one time. But after I put 2 and 2 together and thought about it years later, this shadowy figure had the exact same build and height as my grandfather. I've never been able to explain it and would love to be able to, but it still doesn't make sense and it was over 20 years ago. Case file number 3119, written by I. Jacoby, The Muttering. The house I grew up in was kind of weird. I'm not at all woo-woo or prone to believe in any kind of paranormal anything at all. We're material beings made of meat running on energy. But I always thought my mom talked to herself. I would hear her in the bathroom getting ready or going down the hallway, and she had a kind of quiet mutter she'd do like she was winning an argument against an invisible opponent. I guess I started noticing that when I was a kid, 7 or 8 or something like that. I think I was just in high school, maybe 14 or 15, and I heard my mom in the bathroom across the hall from my room, and it just occurred to me I should ask what she's going on about. So, I poked my head out of my room and was like, "Mom, you're muttering to yourself. What are you saying?" And from the other end of the goddamn hallway, I hear my mom from her room say, "What?" I assumed I had just heard her from her room and mistaken it for being closer, so I asked her again, "What are you talking to yourself about?" She came out of her room with a puzzled face and just kind of casually said, "I wasn't talking to myself. I don't do that." I swore up and down, "Mom, be real. I hear you talking to yourself all the time whenever I'm in my room." Again, she absolutely swore that simply wasn't a thing she did. I kind of shook it off, but made a point to notice the next time I heard it. Fast forward a couple weeks, and again, I hear my mom in the bathroom, same muttering. So I go to the hallway to call her out, and she's in the fucking kitchen. Then, just like that, it stopped. Never heard it again from then to the time I moved out at 18. It just stopped. So an entity that was mimicking your mom, but as soon as you found out, it's like the game was up, and then they had to leave. Huh. Maybe the entity is just having fun, and wondering how long it'll take you to realize, and when you do, then they just move on to their next target. Case file number 3120, written by Aggressive Cow, 5399. Welcome to our home. Me, my girlfriend, her friend, and her boyfriend were just out at a bar. We sat down next to a couple, and we all started talking. Eventually, they all started talking about crap related to the work and how he's some kind of medical outlier in the history books. Meanwhile, his wife is acting very strange, and she's super talkative and sounds like some crackhead lady, but they weren't bums. These guys had money, and the wife was actually quite attractive. Keep in mind, we're in our 20s, and these guys are like 50 plus. They invite us all to their house next to the bar, and for some reason, my girlfriend's friend is like, "Oh, sure." Very strange, in my opinion, to just go to some couple's house after meeting them for an hour or two. Anyways, we went. His wife was being talkative the whole time at the bar, and all of a sudden we got to the house and she looked like her brain just turned off. She had just made some drinks for us and my girlfriend, and I rejected the drinks, but the other two took them. So like I said, all of a sudden his wife just goes brain dead and just gets super quiet. The guy looked fine and just kept talking and talking. Just a strange situation where I think these two were either trying to have an orgy with us, or it was some kind of Dahmer type crap. Just wasn't getting good vibes from them. It was just so strange that they just welcomed us into their house and they literally had just met us. Also, the guy kept insisting he make me a drink, and I was like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna kill you." In my head, I'm like, "Dude, that's literally the worst possible thing you could say to me right now." Just super sketchy and super strange. Happy it didn't go bad, but I was prepared for crap to hit the fan. Yeah, that is the worst thing he could possibly have said, even if he was just a normal guy, "I'm not trying to kill you, don't worry, wink wink, nudge nudge." Like, okay, I won't take the risk. Case file number 3121, written by Opposite Suite 9215. The Phantom Transaction. It was a sunny day, and around 3 or 4 p.m., my mom told me to go get some medications for her from a shop. I decided I would go get something to eat from a different place other than where I usually used to buy medicines, and find a place nearby to get medicines from there. I got the snacks and found a medical shop too. There was an old man, and I bought medicines from him. I called my mom again just to see if these were the medicines that were needed. She told me to replace one of those since she had found them at home. So I went back to the shop to return them, and guess what? There were 2 women at the shop, and not an old man anymore. I told them I just bought medicines from the old guy who was just there, and would like to return one of them. They looked at me puzzled and said, "There was never an old man here. We are the sole owners of this shop since years," and they had no idea about the medicines I had just purchased. I was genuinely scared and came back home, but told her nothing about the incident. I still wonder to this day, who was the person who gave me the medicines? Case file number 3122, written by Shorted Gazin, A Ghost in Red. I was in grade 8 band, and had to go to a recital at the high school that was nearby. It's the end of the recital, and I had to use the bathroom, so I tell my mom I'm heading to the first floor bathroom. I'm the only one in the bathroom and I hear the door open and I think it's my mom, but I see a woman in a red dress go to the stall next to me. She wore red heels, and I didn't think much of it until I washed my hands. I glanced up when the door opened again, and my mom came in saying she needed to use the bathroom as well. I can't remember what she was saying, but she was making a weird joke, and I motioned for her to stop so the other lady wouldn't hear. My mom got confused and asked what I was motioning to, and peered at the stall, and no one was in there. I remember quite clearly that I saw and heard a woman go in the stall next to me, and when I saw that the stall door wasn't even closed, even though I heard her close it, I was freaked out to the point where I abandoned my mom in the washroom and ran out to the car. Case file number 3123, written by Pterodactyl 3467. A hole in the ordinary. My husband hates when I bring this up. We call it the vortex incident. It's so weird and we can't explain it at all, so the more we think about it, the weirder it feels. One day, my husband and I were at home with our kids who were all under 10 years old. He had his phone with him and decided to nap with me. He set an alarm and everything. We wake up not 2 hours later and his phone is gone. We can't find it anywhere. No one besides our kids were home, doors were locked, all that. No phone. I got a call from my phone from his phone a few minutes later. Someone had found his phone on the road near our house, but a good 2 miles away, and turned it into the nearest gas station. I don't know why they gave it to the clerk there, but there was no lock screen on it, so that's how he called us. We can't for the life of us figure out how it went from our room to the side of the road a few miles down in a matter of 2 hours, when it was with us before, and no one had access to it that could have left the house in any way. No, the only possible explanation is someone broke in, only stole your phone, brought it 2 miles away, did nothing with it, it wasn't locked as you said, then just left it there and someone reported it. That's the mundane explanation that most people would adopt, and, we know better. We don't really have an answer, we can just say, the universe is weird and it probably got ported away for some reason, or a spirit took it. Maybe one of your friends or relatives that passed away was curious what was on your phone, and decided to take it for a spin. Case file number 3124, written by Titty Spliff. Labyrinth of Ash. After my grandma died, I would have vivid dreams about wandering around her house. Her house in real life is a bit of a maze, so in my dreams it became a labyrinth. I would hear her calling for me, but every time I narrowed in and opened a door, the room would be empty. In one of these dreams, I followed her voice into her bedroom and could hear her behind the bathroom door. When I opened the door, the room was engulfed in flames. Fire was pouring in from the huge window. I woke up very abruptly that Monday morning. My dreams were always vivid, but this one was eerily realistic. It was so unsettling that this dream stuck with me for a few days. My mom called me that Thursday telling me that the house had caught fire a few days prior. My family kept the house after she passed, but no one was living there full time when this happened. The neighbor saw the fire and put it out while leaving a note on the front door for one of us to find. The fire happened Sunday night and started outside her bathroom window. This has all the markings of subconscious trying to force information into the conscious mind while dreaming is often the case when that happens, where it's not like a voice speaking to you in clear language most of the time. It's just images and implications and inference. So in this case, you saw an image of what your deeper mind thought was going to happen, and it did. Now, that deeper mind probably has connections to information that is beyond simple input from the surroundings, because nothing would indicate that could cause a fire from some place far away. But I just find it fascinating how the subconscious tries to communicate with the us, the conscious version of us that is self-aware. What is that self-awareness, It's so mysterious. We still don't really understand it. Case file number 3125, written by Winnie Pooh 44. A small, perfect mystery. Last weekend, a close friend who was visiting lost her earring while she was out doing errands. The earring had importance, as it was connected to her mom who passed 10 years ago. To frame this, she is a rocket scientist who pays close attention to details. She recalled inserting the hook through her right earlobe as she stepped through the threshold of the bedroom door. She checked both earrings throughout the afternoon and only noticed it was missing after returning to my house. We thoroughly searched the bedroom, jewelry pouch, handbag, bed, floor, and anywhere it could have fallen just in case. I then joined her to go search the Costco parking lot and others with flashlights late into the night. I kept feeling it's close, meaning it was back at home. We called upon my deceased grandmother, who is our parking lot angel and guardian angel, with whom my friend shares a birthday. I told my friend about how people are always finding things like this in previously well-searched areas. Upon returning home, we again searched, then gave up, not expecting any miraculous return. A little while later, when she went to place the other earring back into the jewelry pouch, the missing one reappeared. We believe Granny came through for us once again. We were both perplexed and delighted. Case file number 3126, written by Anonymous. Odin's Messengers. A few years ago, I was on my way home from the gym. I walked through this tiny garden area when suddenly I see two huge ravens. They were in the only small tree that was nearby. I will never forget the scene. I just stood there for a few minutes and looked at them while they looked at me. There was something so unnatural about it. I live in the center of a big city, yet here were these two huge jet black birds just staring at me. I've only ever seen pigeons and small crows here. I pulled out my phone to take a picture, and literally just when I went into the camera app, they flew away. I live in Scandinavia, as in the place where people used to believe in the northern gods, one of whom, Odin, was known for his two ravens that flew around, observing the world to report back to him. Case file number 3127, written by Black Hawk Rogue Ninja X. A Glimpse of Forever. I dated a girl for about 6 months. It was great, but she really wanted to settle down and have kids, and I definitely didn't. So it ended, but on very good terms. Flash forward 5 years. I was living an empty life and realized kids and a family were going to be the only thing to fill it. So I was reflecting on the people who I'd dated and who I'd want to spend my life with. She was really the only one where I'd put her needs first. A day or so later, I see her in my area walking with her dad, about 50 feet down the street. It was an amazing coincidence. I start to head over, but after about 10 seconds I realize I'm being insane, and she probably doesn't want to do the awkward ex conversation with her dad there, so I let her go. About an hour later, I decide to drop her a friendly text to let her know I think I just saw her and her dad. She replies she's pleased to hear from me, but it definitely wasn't her as she was on holiday with her family at the time. We reconnect anyway. A year or so go by and we're on a course to get married, and I finally meet her dad. Bear in mind I've never met him before or seen a picture of him, but he looked exactly like the guy I saw that day. It was spooky to me. Like my brain imagined what I needed, but somehow got it spot on. We're married now and busy playing happy families. Case file number 3128, written by Cherry Red 130. Cowboy in the Fog. Recently, I was driving by some train tracks in an industrial part of town. It was nighttime, so there weren't many people around, but the area was well lit. As I'm driving past a car scrapyard, I see a man in jeans, a jean jacket, and this huge cowboy hat, and I double take. My parents' best friend, deceased, lived in a small apartment that backed up to the scrapyard, which his family owned. The guy has been dead since 2016. I double take, because he always wore a big cowboy hat, but the guy is gone, like completely gone. I go around the block twice and nothing, everywhere is deserted. Interestingly, at the time I'd been processing trauma from my fling with his nephew in therapy. My mom, who has had many supernatural encounters with him, for example, she saw his shadow in her bedroom a few weeks after his death with the cowboy hat on, said that she thinks that was his apology to me for what I went through. Case file number 3129, written by Equivalent Strength. The Numb Silence. I had family visiting from across the country, so my aunt slept in my room, and I slept in the office on a camping cot. It was always eerie for some reason, like you were constantly watched, but I chalked it up to the windows and teenage paranoia. Anyways, I will go to sleep. Then in the middle of the night, I'm awoken by the sound of heavy, slow breathing in my left ear, and only my left ear. I jolt awake, look around, and think I must have heard my breathing. No big deal. I lay back down and do my test breath to see if it was me. It wasn't. The cadence was off. Before I could jump off the cot, the breathing continued, but now even closer. They were slow, deep breaths that sounded like someone who had breathing issues, almost asthmatic. At the same time, my left ear begins to go numb. Mind you, I'm wide awake, frozen in fear, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what is going on. Then I hear a man say in my ear, "You'd better like breathing now, because one day you won't anymore." This voice was clear as day. I am sure I could recognize it now. Then the breathing stopped. I laid there for what felt like an eternity until I got the guts to sprint out of the room. I slept on the couch for the remainder of the visit. So, speaking of the subconscious, speaking to your conscious, I think this is in a more direct way. Your subconscious was much more literal and specific. I think tapping into future knowledge of yourself and perhaps the path you're on. My guess is, at this time, you were probably a smoker or maybe working in construction and with like dry concrete and not wearing a mask or something like that. That would probably give you asthma or maybe even lung cancer. And this was your future self, you could say, giving you a warning. Very specific one. And yeah, that would be terrifying, but I think that's what happened. Case file number 3130, written by Louis 2698. The Watchers by the Water. Last summer, I was on vacation and I was walking with my girlfriend along the lake when I spotted some crows in front of us that were flying in a strange way. When we got closer, I saw in the lake a crow who was nearly drowning, with the feathers soaked in water. The second I saw the crow going underwater and gasping for air, I removed my clothes and jumped in the water to do something. When I got near the crow, I realized it's not a good idea to touch it like that, and used my shirt to take it from the water, and then I placed it somewhere safer so it doesn't get in the water. When I carried the crow out of the water, more crows gathered around and started making so much noise it was frightening. I left her in the grass hoping it would make it alive. I continued my walk, and after an hour or so, I was lying on the beach and a crow got in my sight. Not really close, but enough to notice it. Made some noise and then left. The only thing that came to mind was, "Welcome," and I smiled. I don't know if it counts, but it felt good. Your instinct to jump in the lake and save the crow is really commendable, honestly. I don't think most people would have done that. So, nice, and I think the crow really appreciated it. I don't know if there's anything supernatural about this one though, it's just an interesting story, and one that shines a light on you very positively. I think the crow was very happy with you, and its crow friends were probably happy too. The murder gathering that did not end you. And you know, ravens and crows are extremely intelligent. One of the most intelligent animals. I think equivalent to a 7-year-old human or something like that. Incredibly intelligent. Case file number 3131, written by Red, White, Blue, Yellow, 26800. The Third Night. The night of, after my grandfather's third funeral day. In my culture, first day is to mourn. Second is for rituals, and third is to get them to the burial site. My family dog barked all night at a very strange manner. Like if your dog sees a stranger, it would bark loudly and stop and loudly again. But this time it barked in a calmish manner, with a steady frequency, like you're doing a presentation or a speech, yet quite softly. Anyway, it was around 1 in the morning and he barked at around 3 a.m., which made me, my cousins, my uncle, who came to help for the funeral, and my dad all woke up. My dad decided to check at around 2 a.m., but nothing happened. Nobody was there inside and outside the gate. At morning, while we were just eating breakfast like usual, my grandmother told us about her dream last night, about seeing our grandfather standing at the front of the house but struggling because of the new altar, which was put in the family altar room just a month before. And we proceeded to tell her all about the strange thing that happened last night. I haven't believed in ghosts and religious things, but that event made me question some stuff. Also, it may be important to know that the ritual usually includes getting the dead person to the gravesite after creating their own altar. Make a small ritual there as a form of respect for the resting place of the body, and take that altar home as a way to guide the spirit back home. Case file number 3132, written by Sofix. Radio silence. I was working night shift armed security on a farm a few years ago. We had a patrol route that would take us on a one-lane road, and about half the time, you would run into the other agent coming the opposite way you were going. As a courtesy, the one closer to a spot to pull off the road would pull over and turn off their headlights so the other one could see easier, and the other agent would turn theirs off as they passed so they didn't blind you. Typically, when I would pass by the guy I worked with, he would give some B-tier dad joke that would lighten the mood of working long shifts. Narrator's note. Nice. Well, one night I saw him approaching on the one lane and did as I said and pulled off to the side and killed my headlights. He passed, but it was strange because he said nothing over the radio. In fact, it was creepily quiet, even though I had my windows down. After he passed, I watched him move around the bend in the road in my mirror and turn my lights on. As soon as I turned them on, I heard the other agent call over the radio, "Sure would be nice if you kept your lights off until I passed you," in a joking voice. I snapped my head forward and saw his patrol car approaching, even though I had just watched him pass me. I was struck with a panic, almost primal fear. I can't describe the gut-wrenching feeling I had once I saw him pass me a second time. Case file number 3133, written by Hippie Dips, the man at Pump 2. Around the time COVID lockdowns first started in the US, I was driving 4 hours one way deep into the mountains to go see a friend. It was my first time making that drive, and for most of the way, there was no phone signal. By hour 3, it was already really dark out, and I was in the middle of nowhere. Like you could drive for miles and miles and there wouldn't be a single other car, house, or store. I was running really low on gas and finally passed by a lone gas station on the side of the mountain pass. The convenience store section was already closed, and there were only 2 pumps that were pretty spaced out from each other. I parked at one, and there was one other dark-colored sedan with tinted windows parked in front. I got out of the car, and being March in the middle of the mountains, probably at 10,000 feet elevation, it was pretty cold. I was a 21-year-old at the time, and I'm a female. I had no weapons on me to defend myself. I pumped my gas and put the pump back in place and started heading back to the driver's seat, which is on the other side of the car as my gas cap. As I'm doing this, the driver of the other car comes up to my car. He's an average-built guy, probably in his 30s. He tells me his car broke down and asks if he can stay the night at my place. I quickly mumble that I'm not from the area, hop into my car and speed off in the direction of my friends. My heart was beating really fast at the time, and I was freaking out and asked myself what just happened. Sure, it's possible that maybe his car did break down, but the fact that it broke down right at the gas pump when we're in an area where you could drive for miles and not come across any stores or homes just felt odd to me. I wasn't willing to take that risk, and really didn't have anywhere to take the guy anyway. Okay, again, not supernatural, not a mystical event, just you listening to your senses. It is sad for the man. It's kind of like you could say the issue with the homeless. I want to help them. Just give them a bit of money, maybe just give them food or something, because that you can't really trade that for drugs or anything. I do want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it is context dependent. If this happened in a brightly lit area during the day in a town, okay, it's a different story. Even then you should be cautious, but it's very different, especially if you also had some weapon, some way to defend yourself if he was a bad actor. But no, you're alone, 10,000 feet above sea level, where no one else is around. No weapons obviously you can't help him in that case. Best case, try to get him a phone or something if he could. So yeah, I'm the type, I do want to help people. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but you just have to approach things based on context and percentage of risk chance, that matters. In this case, it was not worth it. So Props to you for making the right call, I think. Now time for the jokes of the day. One of my friends became an Egyptologist. The only way he can make a living is by becoming a PhD and teach others to become Egyptologists too. As far as I'm concerned, it's a pyramid scheme. Why is the last letter of the alphabet black and white? Because it's a Z, bruh. Got fired from the gym because I couldn't bench 30 pounds. Had to put in my 2-week notice. Yeah, understandable. I was out walking and saw a guy carrying a Scrabble board. He tripped, tiles went everywhere. Couldn't help myself. I asked him, "What's the word on the street?" Did you hear about the vampire who went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before biting his victims on the neck? They called him Count Down. Alright, compilation up here. Check it out if you haven't already seen it, or just want more sleep stories. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.